נכנסים לאולם, אנחנו ביקשנו להזמין לכנס את הוגה דעות יהודי בצרפת, ברנאר לוי, שהתארח אצלנו בעבר במכון באחד הכנסים. בעקבות כמובן כל האירועים שמתרחשים באירופה ובצרפת עצמה, חלק מהנושאים שדנו בהם במושב של הבוקר, כל הנושא של הדלגיטימציה וה-BDS, והוא בכלל מאוד, יש לו דעה מאוד נחרצת, שחלק מהאנטישמיות וחלק בוא נאמר, הביקורת הקשה על מדינת ישראל, על האופן שבו מדינת ישראל מפעילה את הכוח, או הדמוניזציה שמייחסים למדינת ישראל בהפעלת הכוח, או חוסר הפרופורציונל בהפעלת הכוח, זה חלק מתהליך ההזדקות של מדינות אירופה, מחשבון השואה שעומד לנגד עיניהם עד היום. דרך אגב, זו סוגיה שאנחנו מגלים אותה עולה בנושאים שונים, שחלק מההסברים של מה לא עשינו אז ומה אנחנו עושים היום, נוח יותר להעמיד אותם אל מול הביקורת באשר למדיניות הישראלית והאופן שבו ישראל מתנהגת והאופן שבו ישראל מפעילה את הכוח. אז אנחנו נפתח את מושבי הערב בריאיון ששלח לנו ברנאר אנרי לוי. בבקשה.
Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, 6 years ago I was there in Tel Aviv with you, addressing you, having the privilege and honor of addressing you directly, and I am so sorry this year not to be able to do it and to be compelled to do it through this little video. What I would like to do in a few words is to try to stress the differences of situation between 6 years ago and today. What happened since 6 years in the world Jewry, in Israel, and in France? The first thing which happened, from point of view, is that Israel is facing, strategically, militarily speaking, a situation which appears more and more in a more and more clear way as a new situation. In the past, the enemies of Israel had a target, had a goal, had a program, had an agenda, which was a Palestinian state, which was a dispute on this or that border. Today, for the first time in such a clear way, Israel has to face some enemies, Iran, of course, but also Hezbollah or Hamas at its gates, who has no precise agenda, no concrete program, no real claim, except the annihilation of the enemy, except this total war, which was thought, conceptualized 1 century ago by a German general, and which is a terrible sort of war in which there is no very clear reply. This is a strategic situation of Israel today, to have to face one of the very rare total wars in the history of wars. The second thing which happens since 6 years is that it appears more and more clearly that the anti-Semitism which the Jews all over the world have to face did change its face, its pattern and its shape. The Jews have known in the past Catholic anti-Semitism, racist anti-Semitism, enlightened anti-Semitism. Those who reproached them not to have killed the Christ, but to have invented him, on the contrary, today. All these narratives are, I would not say dead, but they are vanishing. The new narrative, which is beginning to create a real mass movement, relies on 3 pillars: anti-Zionism, denial of Holocaust, and competition of memories and of victims. The new narrative consists in saying That if the Jews deserve to be hated, it is not because they killed the Christ or invented the Christ or embody a sort of different race. No, it is because they feel close to a state, Israel, which itself deserves to be hated. It is because they traffic, they invent, they instrumentalize what they should have most sacred, which is the memory of their deads. This is denial of Holocaust, and the argument consists in saying that at the end of the end, the Jews are guilty of overshadowing by their claim, by their insistence on their own martyrdom, overshadowing the martyrdom of other victims and other people. The combination of the three, denial of Holocaust, competition of victims, anti-Zionism, is like the combination of the different devices which can make, when they are combined, assembled, a real nuclear weapon. Anti-Semitism is a sort of moral nuclear weapon. These are the devices. The third thing which happened since we met 6 years ago is that here in Paris, where I am, in France, this anti-Semitism is, for the first time, not only devices, not only ideas, not only words, but bullets. And this anti-Semitism, for the first time since the Second World War, has provoked what was properly unthinkable, the murder of Jews in Paris because they were Jews. The same day, some journalists of a great journal, Charlie Hebdo, were killed because they were doing their job. And this was an absolute horror. And all the people of Paris marched to protest against that, because some cartoonists died because they did their job. But on the same day, some Jews died because they were doing their shopping. In other words, because they were just Jews, which is suspect of being Zionist, faithful to an imaginary Holocaust and overshadowing the suffering of the Palestinian people. So today, in Paris for the first time, and I never imagined that I could live that in this country of Voltaire, of enlightenment, of democracy and of human rights, Jews are killed by bullet because they are Jews. This is another event, another new thing since we met the last time. Does this mean that the Jews of France should leave? Does this mean that France has become a country unbreathable for Jews? I don't think so. I don't think so. I know that some think so. I know that Prime Minister of Israel came in Paris in a synagogue to say the opposite, but my opinion is that it is still, and maybe more than ever, time to fight, to oppose, and to resist. There are some observers who say that France is living a sort of renewal, a remake of the 30s. There is a great difference, a big difference between the 30s and today. There is many differences. Number one, in the 30s, the whole state was corrupted from top to toes. You had ministers in the government who were rubbish and enraged anti-Semites. This today is unthinkable. When Prime Minister Manuel Valls did forbid the manifestations of Dieudonné, when François Hollande called for national unity, there was no voice to oppose them. So this is the real difference. The state was corrupted, it is not today. The second difference with the time of the 30s is the fact that I just quoted this Dieudonné. In the 30s, the anti-Semitic movement had some, let's say, not flags, but there were some writers, there were some ideologists which expressed it in a warm and strong way, if I can say. Today, what is the equivalent of Louis Ferdinand Céline? Who is the equivalent of Paul Morand or Jean Giraudoux? Thanks God, there is none. There is not. So there is a wave of a new anti-Semitism, but without real thinkers, real ideologists able to express it. And the third difference with the 30s is the Jews themselves. Maybe because of Israel, maybe because of this pride which the very existence of Israel provides to every woman or man in diaspora, the Jews of today are much more proud than they were in the 30s. In the 30s, the Jewry in France, in Germany, was so shy, was so accustomed to shadow, was so much in the negativity today. Especially the youth in the Jewish community is so proud of herself, is so proud of her values, and so proud to be Jew. So this is another difference which makes that in front of this wave, the Jews of today will not let them be attacked and will not let them expel from this country. So for all these reasons, I think that the situation is much more favorable than some seem to think it. The last thing I would like to say is that I just stressed the point that France behaved well in front of these anti-Semitic attacks, of this hyper-cachère tragedy. François Hollande found the right words. Manuel Valls came immediately to demonstrate in front of the grocery. In a way, I would say that in France, like abroad, as abroad, France is on the front line of the fight against jihadism. In Africa, in Mali, in a way in Syria, French policy was probably the most active against this new plague, which is jihadism. So, being in front line of this fight, this world fight against radical Islam, France meets another country which is also on the front line and since so long, which is Israel. And I have the feeling that because of that, because of this common battle against terrorism, jihadism, and Islamofascism, there is a sort of new form of brotherhood between Israel and France, which is generated by the situation. It is an old story, the story of the relationship between the two countries. It is an old story, the story of this fraternity. My feeling is that the tragedy we are facing these days opens a new page of this brotherhood and creates a new step of this fraternity. Brothers of arms, brothers in the battle against the radical Islam and in favor of the democratic Islam and of the democratic values in general. This is a situation in which the two countries, Israel and France, are today. And as a Frenchman, and as a Jew, and as a Zionist, I am so happy of this situation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I hope to be there next year to address you directly again.